Friday, October 3rd. I'm Jim Check. With me, Ian Burns from our nation's capital out there. How are things out there?
Very sunny, actually. It's a beautiful fall day.
Look at that, all across Canada, because it's a beautiful sunny day here in the Okanagan, and no smoke, no haze, no nothing. Just a beautiful day. Look at the live shot behind me. So the headlines today, the big one is EB, the biggest threat to Canadian unity. Carney is going to meet with Trump. Jason Kenney lays it out and calls EB a mud hutter. Christy Clark says EB is just full of it. Canada heading into winter, an economic winter. Property rights essential to Canadian certainty. BC Ferries scandal just keeps getting worse. And we interviewed Dan Elvis yesterday on that. Can we build anything here? That's a good question. And Trudeau is now getting attacked by his former MPs. All that and a lot more, including Trump warns of hell on earth. This is going to be a great show, actually. Lots of really good headlines, that's for sure. But I guess what everybody's waiting for is this deal with the Americans. But, in one breath they say, we already have the best deal of anybody. And then the next breath, Donald Trump is the devil destroying Canada. I'm not sure where we are. You just said Stephen Guilbeault is up there speaking in the House of Commons, telling the Parliament that we have the best deal of anybody.
Yeah. What's happened there is either they've all had a cabinet meeting, and Mark Carney has said, all right, this is a new line. Because it's relatively recent, isn't it, that catchphrase that we have the best deal of any country in the world with the United States, which is obviously wrong because there's Mexico as well, so it's not quite the same thing. But anyway, and also, as David Eby said, countries like Russia have better access to the American market for wood, for lumber. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, obviously that's happened. Either Carney has said in a meeting do that, or one of his little media urchins has sent out the notice to every single minister saying, if you get asked a question, or probably MP, if you get asked a question about America, about the trade deal, just say this: 95% of goods covered under CUSMA, and it's the best deal anybody has. It's quite. You do have to ask the question though: why did they change their tune on that?
Especially
it's a very dramatic sort of U-turn, isn't it?
Especially 2 days ago when Donald Trump announced new tariffs and that, including on softwood, which they said would end the forest industry here in Canada, and on furniture and cabinets and a bunch of other things like that. So that's what I mean. You need kind of like a program to keep up. I don't know who gets the program guide. But again, it's Mark Carney is going to Washington, and he's going to be there once again. He is going to meet with Donald Trump in Washington. And they're going to talk about shared priorities in this new economic and security relationship between Canada and the U.S. Meanwhile, one of Carney's ministers, Dominic LeBlanc, said that he's lost the illusion that he can predict when we may get an agreement with the United States. I mean, he was also questioned, Dominic LeBlanc, on all the concessions we've made. And he said, they're not concessions, they're part of negotiations. I'm just like, well, we've given up a lot of things and got almost zero back in return, other than a new tariff here and a new tariff there. And it's just almost like an old McDonald's song, right? With a quack, quack here and a quack, quack there. It's like a new tariff here and a new tariff there.
But see, yeah, you're right to talk about concessions, because we've made serious concessions already. Counter tariffs basically all removed. Digital services tax binned. We were told for ages that was like a must-have. That was an essential tool for justice and fairness, and it was about global
$3 billion
and all sorts of nonsense like that.
Into our coffers too. $3 billion a year into our coffers.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's also the language, which obviously we know that Donald Trump cares a lot about that, about the language used, and his ambassador said this many times. All of a sudden, other than the odd slip up from Champagne or Guilbeault or some fool like that, but by and large, the language has been toned right down, and there's no insults anymore to the US, or they've moved on from that. So in terms of concessions, huge, yeah. And not only have we not got anything back, we've actually got worse treatment than we had when we were insulting them and when we had tariffs on them. So it's kind of
Trump. In the last couple of days, he also brought up the 51st state thing. He was actually talking 51st state again when he said that Canada wants to join the Golden Dome. He said, I don't know why they want to join. They can't afford it, so they might as well just become the 51st state.
Yeah. and get it for free, he says, not quite understanding what the arrangement would be there. But yeah, goodness knows what's going on. What I'd be very interested to know is what was going on when we were told a few months ago by Carney, by all of his senior ministers, and also out of the US. We were told that it was like imminent. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, maybe many people have forgotten that, but we were told it's like, yeah, it's just around the corner. It's going to happen. I mean, even Carney,
By
he
July
put these silly
21st. July
deadlines.
21st, I
Yeah,
think. July 21st.
he did two deadlines, didn't he? Two,
Yeah.
in retrospect, a very foolish thing for him to have done. But
Yeah.
obviously, the only reason he would have done that is because he was really confident. So I mean, we'll figure it out, or we'll learn later. I hope we don't have to wait for like the memoirs or something like that. But we'll learn soon enough. Fingers crossed, what that was about. But I do know that for sure, dairy supply management is on the table as it always is, and they are always upset about it. The Americans and the Europeans and the British and everybody else that we do business with, they're always so upset about this because they say this is like it's like a closed economy. It's like what they used to do in the Soviet Union. It's like you can't do this and expect to sign a trade deal, a free trade deal with another country. It infuriates these countries, chief among them the United States. And yet we heard it was sometime this week, I can't remember which day, we had a big minister, a big senior minister come out and say there's absolutely no way that supply management is on the table. It's not even near these discussions. So, I mean, you probably wouldn't. It wouldn't be a bad idea if you're putting a bet on it to say that's what the obstacle is.
Well, they've also said that there's no way they're going to change that EV mandate, and lo and behold, they just well, we're going to pause it. So they did. I mean, how long did they say that?
Yeah.
Just out of a matter of interest in what we do here, we're a little bit different than most news outlets. We're independent, and let's pull up. We've done it for the last 2 days, so let's do it again today. What's CBC having you focus on today? Let's just, if we can pull that up, just to see. Because like the 2 days ago, they were just, it was like 5 stories on Trump being the devil. And then yesterday was Danielle Smith was the devil, and we're just about to talk to Danielle Smith. So what are we doing? Sex torters targeting young boys online.
Lots of sextortion. We've got a climber that died in Yosemite,
That's good.
an American, I think.
Right? And then Carney. Yeah, but
The
nothing
new
about the budget still.
biodegradable burial option. That's great. The new biodegradable burial option available in Canada.
Where is the budget? Like we've been talking about the budget. That's the most important story in Canada, the budget.
Taylor Swift. You missed Taylor Swift. That's the biggest news.
That's what I mean. So that's
a really prominent spot on the website.
That's what they want to focus on, and this pipeline. It's this pipeline and the budget. But anyway, Danielle Smith, we're going to play this small clip.
You might expect, we're going to talk about it later, I assume. I very much assume we'll talk about it later. But where's the comments from the CEO of Enbridge? Possibly the most important individual in the industrial landscape in this country who said something extraordinary. CBC, just it didn't happen.
This is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about this pipeline and what it means to Canada. And we got lots on this, and this is a big segment here. We're going to listen to Danielle Smith first and talking about kind of like let her frame it. This was done yesterday. Let's play this clip here from Danielle.
We've come together here today because Canada stands at a critical crossroads. Beneath our feet here in Alberta, we stand on oil reserves valued at over $9 trillion. What stands before us right now is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to unlock our wealth of resources and become a world-leading energy superpower. And that's why we are announcing that the Government of Alberta will be the proponent of an oil pipeline to the Northwest BC coast, with the support and technical advice of 3 major pipeline companies, including Southbow, Enbridge, and Trans Mountain. Our government will make a formal application to the Federal Project Office under the Building Canada Act. With today's announcement, Alberta is prepared to answer the call to support global energy security efforts while creating lasting prosperity for Albertans and Canadians for generations to come.
Pierre Poilievre's got to be careful if she does any more of these fancy clips like that where she walks in slow motion. There's a lot of people calling for her to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. She's definitely, if anybody's putting the cape on for Canada, it's her. Jason Kenney sometimes attacks Danielle Smith, but here he is on CBC defending Danielle Smith and calling David Eby a mud hutter. Like, we're going to play this clip here.
exports of the entire Canadian lumber industry, and that doesn't even include the huge multi-billion-dollar investments in upstream development.
Right. Okay. You don't tweet often, but when you do, you tweet at length, and you did that today. You did make this lumber point, but you also said David Eby is objectively a much bigger threat to Confederation and to the rule of law than Alberta separatists. You talked about the law being clear, as we learned with TMX, but you talk about a conversation I guess you had with the late John Horgan, where you said that his party, he told you, included a mud hut wing of green extremists, which I took to include Eby, and you called the Premier of British Columbia an ideological zealot who's not on Team Canada. That's a lot, Jason Kenney. I mean, but why go there? I mean, what does that do to this?
Well, I was watching Eby pretending to be part of Team Canada, be Captain Canada, the guy who's given the Chinese shipyard this subsidized by the Chinese government and the People's Liberation Army, these shipping jobs. He found himself in a convenience store in Tokyo when the first ministers were meeting about creating one Canadian economy, knocking down trade barriers. And now he's standing in the way of the single largest potential project to create wealth and diversify exports that is on offer in the Canadian economy when he has absolutely no legal or constitutional authority to do so. He is a lawyer, but he is performatively acting like a demagogue right now. He knows that the Constitution, Section 9210 of the 1867 Constitution Act, gives the federal government exclusive authority over interprovincial infrastructure, including pipelines, as reaffirmed unanimously by both the BC Appeals Court and the Supreme Court of Canada quite recently. And so the reason I say he's a bigger threat, I don't think the Alberta separatists, the hardcore separatists, are actually a serious threat. I think they're a very small minority. But this is a BC Premier using his office to violate and threaten the Constitution and to say to patriotic Albertans and Saskatchewan residents that he's going to try to use his political authority against the clear letter of the Constitution to block provinces from exporting what they produce, which is undermining the entire premise of Confederation as an economic union.
Well,
Mud Hutter.
Sounds like a forbidden slur of some kind, that, doesn't it? Quite a strange term. But yeah, it's. I mean, we should say Eby, because obviously I assume that Cochrane said what I'm about to say now. But Eby has said that, contrary to what Kenney's claiming there, that this isn't even a project at all. Also, Adrian Dix gave an interview yesterday, very funny interview, where he said, this project isn't even a project. It's like, well, if it isn't a project, why are you calling it a project? But anyway, they would say, this is not a real project. It's not going to happen. It's like, it's fake. It's not real. Whereas, look at our glorious LNG and wind turbine projects. This is the future. And, you know, we've heard that a lot, haven't we, lately? But just to get his his perspective on the record there. That's what he would say in response to that.
I think one of the things Danielle Smith said in her little promo video there, which was a good promo video with the slow-mo and everything, that's what we got to get on this show, a little slow-mo, right? $9 trillion, it's in the ground right now, $9 trillion. And I think, I don't know how you spin the windmill thing up, but I don't think it's going to spin anywhere near $9 trillion in value for Canadians.
Might cost that much.
My God, there you go.
But yeah, it's he makes an interesting point, doesn't he, about Eby being a threat to you know, Confederation. It's obvious. It's not just Eby though. Eby's hardly the sort of wellspring of this kind of thing, is he? He's just a tool, really, being used by other people. Bear in mind, he's being attacked from the other side. He's not just being attacked from the Alberta pro-natural resources people. He's being attacked from Greens and his own sort of left-wing environmentalists in his own party, who are upset with him about LNG. And, you know, I mean, hard to believe, but there are people that are still really, really allergic to LNG. They really actively despise it and think that it's going to, you know, destroy the world and all the rest of it. So he's kind of trying. It's a balancing act for him, isn't it? He's trying to keep them on side, and I think part of his strategy is to say, okay, no oil. I draw the line at oil. And also just some Alberta bashing. He loves to bash other provinces, though, doesn't he? Like, this is another, I don't know if Kenney mentioned this in the interview, but just in the last few months, he's bashed Ontario, and Quebec endlessly for how they, take money from, equalization payments and how they get everything that they want while he doesn't, how they send immigrants, asylum seekers, all the rest of it. Alberta just bashes Alberta every day, doesn't he? And then
Relentlessly.
the Maritimes constantly going on about the Maritimes, how they get more money for their ferries and things like that. It's like, he's playing a dangerous game. And he's the kind of guy that likes to stand up behind a podium and put on his serious voice and his serious face, serious droopy face, and say things like, this is dangerous. This is dangerous, and I don't like this talk. And it's kind of, you're doing the exact same thing. And if anything, I hear more from him attacking other provinces than I do from Danielle Smith. So, he needs to give his head a shake.
Yeah. I'm thinking that Mud Hutter thing might stick. We got one person here that likes it, so I don't know. Scott Moe coming out and standing behind Alberta. I mean, those two they swing in lockstep for sure. Saskatchewan stands with Alberta as they take steps to build the new West Coast pipeline. Again, between Alberta, like seriously, between Alberta and Saskatchewan, that is where the cash register is for Canada. That is the future too. Energy. Energy is the future of Canada. And I know that BC has hydro, Ontario has hydro, as does Quebec, which is great. But the rest of the energy there, LNG, oil and gas, uranium, and then even potash for growing things. It's like that is kind of like the where the bulk of our wealth rests in Canada. Landlocked.
It's also an attitude thing as well, isn't it? Both of those provinces have the attitude that they should get things done, and they do get things done. To be honest, yeah, I mean, you just have to say, once upon a time, Ontario, BC, all the rest of it, they did get things done. Hence, those provinces have built up civilizations with all kinds of infrastructure, but they've lost their way now, I think it's fair to say. Whereas Alberta and Saskatchewan, they still have belief in themselves and their own sort of assets, don't they?
Just think what our bargaining power would be with the Americans right now if we did have the Northern Gateway pipeline right now and the East-West, like the Eastern pipeline. Just think what our bargaining power would be. We'd say, well, I don't know, if you don't want to do business with it, that's fine. Right? Well, we don't have
so
anything.
We'll just sell it to the Japanese for more. Like, yeah. Okay.
And we wouldn't have a discount on Western Canadian Select. Like go take a look at Western Canadian Select. We used to do it on the show all the time. Western Canadian Select sells at a discount to West Texas Intermediate because we got one customer, and that one customer says, this is what we're willing to pay. Like it or lump it.
Yeah.
And this is what you talked about. The CTV, there's an Enbridge CEO says no company will invest in a pipeline unless Liberals ditch policies. I mean, that's just, again, it's just basic common sense. I mean, if you don't have certainty, why would you invest? Because it's billions and billions of dollars, right? So the tanker ban and then the no pipeline ban, all those things are in the way of investing. And then if you look at what Teck, that's now going to be taken over, where they walked away from the Frontier project there in Fort Mac after spending over $1 billion. And they said it was because of Liberal policy. They walked away from $1 billion investment, and they had billions more to spend. They just said it's not going to go forward. It's just we're wasting money. And why would anybody invest billions of dollars if these legislations are still in place, right? And that's what they're saying. These are some of the most powerful companies in Canada that are still left in Canada. It says, unless the Liberal government abandons these policies, including the tanker ban, the carbon tax and emissions cap, he said that it's hostile to industry. And he said the Liberal government of Justin Trudeau has been a competitive disaster for Canada. And then that's been a decade of it. And the next decade can be a renaissance. But we have the same people blocking. So we have the block blocking, imagine that, the block blocking, and David Eby's NDP blocking, and then many of the Liberal ministers that are still there from Trudeau's era, and we're going to talk about it later, where Catherine McKenna goes after Trudeau. I think they're trying to distance themselves from the Trudeau Liberals here. But it's the same crew, and it's the same messaging.
Yeah. He was asked probably the most serious question, I would say. He was asked about BC, but he was asked what I think is an even bigger question, which is what about the First Nations? Some of them object to this. And he had quite an interesting answer, where it's just like, we live in a free sort of democratic society. Not everybody is going to agree on everything, obviously. Like, for each issue, there are going to be people that agree and people disagree. And he said quite a lot of First Nations are completely on board with this.
Oh.
Just because some of them aren't, that doesn't mean that it's dead in the water. That's just part of a normal, healthy society. And I just thought, I doubt he's much of a sort of philosopher, intellectual, this guy, or maybe he is. But I just thought that was a very, very interesting point, actually, that you don't hear very often.
Yeah,
Usually the language that you hear is, okay, one single First Nation that maybe has like 80 members or something. All right, they don't want to do this thing. The answer that I hear from most people is, all right, well, we just need to consult better. Let's just get better at consulting. It's kind of, that can't always be the answer, because sometimes you can consult all you want and they might still not want to do it. Then what? If it's a matter of national importance of this magnitude, then what? Then what do? You need an answer to that question.
Jason Kenney also in that interview, the longer part of that interview, calls out CBC in that interview on that exact point, saying you always seem to bring out First Nations that are dead set against it, but there's many First Nations groups that are actually really for these projects. You never give their voice a voice. And he said he started a fund when he was the premier, and many First Nations groups took advantage of it and furthered their economic development. And he said, he called out CBC for this. And I mean, it's pretty obvious. And when we go to the headlines, we can go to the headlines every morning and you can see the same nonsense, right? Where's the interviews with First Nations groups that we want this for the economic prosperity of our people? Where are those stories? Because there's a lot of them. Anyway.
Indeed.
Let's listen to Christy Clark. Christy Clark, who actually ran for the Liberal Party. She may have been the better choice at the end of the day, but let's listen to Christy Clark.
This, Mike, this federal tanker ban was a joke when they brought it in, and it's a joke now. And the reason it is because the Americans are shipping bitumen along the west coast of British Columbia from Alaska down past all the way down the coast. And they're doing it almost every day. The tanker ban doesn't affect them. And guess what? There haven't been any bitumen spills. So I think there's some myth busting that has happen. There's a pathway to yes that has to be defined. And then there's the issue of the British Columbia government, the EB government, which is dead scared of any conversation about oil on the North Coast. I think British Columbians, if it went to a referendum, I think people would pass it. But the NDP base will not accept a David Eby government supporting this project.
The Americans can sail by and wave, right, as they go by and just say, hey, you know what I mean?
Well, it's just it's the absurdity of a lot of these more extreme climate regulations. But in this instance, you can literally see it. So you could stand on Vancouver Island and see it with your own eyes, see the absurdity. Whereas you can't necessarily see Chinese emissions or Indian emissions while we in Canada sort of pathetically and pointlessly try to bring our emissions down. But it highlights that same point. It's like they used to call it global warming, and the most important word there is global, I think. It's about the whole planet. So if the whole planet isn't doing it, it makes no sense for one insignificant country to do it, does it really? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter what Canada does.
Well, for the mud hutters, maybe it does. I mean, I think I might put that word in my vocabulary. But here's
I should say in this case, I think this is less about emissions, isn't it? And although that does come into it, but this is more about the prospect of like seals and otters and things covered in oil and how tragic that would be if there was to be a spill. But
well, they've had big spills off the Alaskan
It doesn't really happen
coast,
very
right?
often, does it? Tanker spills. You get pipelines break now and then, but tankers, that's not a particularly common occurrence, is it?
A big one off of Alaska there, I think the Exxon Valdez or something like that, wasn't it? If my memory serves correctly. And but I mean, it's been a long time ago, and obviously they've put in these false hulls and all that stuff to kind of help that as well.
But that's the cost of civilization, unfortunately. Like, we have really cool things like cars and airplanes and so on, but the cost of that, there are quite a few costs, but one of the main costs is, it might crash. Like the car might crash, the plane might crash. It does happen now and then. But just because that happens doesn't mean you shouldn't have nice things. I mean, for God's sake.
Here's Tim Hodgson celebrating a win for Canada. Look at the win, though. If we take a look at the win, we're going to just be super surprised that this is the win. Abundant natural resources, competitive tax incentives, and a regulatory regime that inspires certainty. Canada has it all. And welcome to Canada. And this is, guess what? A carbon capture.
They should rename carbon capture to subsidy capture, or taxpayers' money capture, because that is going to be the main source of their revenue, isn't it?
But this is what it says. The startup is moving to Canada for better incentives and a more stable regulatory environment. Because in the U.S., they're not going to get the subsidies anymore from the Trump administration. So where are they coming? To Canada. And who's probably likely involved in this? You take a guess. Who's involved in carbon capture? Which company comes to mind that has a lot of its...
that excellent formerly Canadian company that our Prime Minister decided to move to New York. Is it that one?
This is like mini windmills, or what is that? I'm sure that will replace the $9 trillion that's in the ground in Alberta. I'm sure. This startup, too. This is, again, here you have Trump standing at the podium when he's got, the guys from Google and Oracle and Apple standing next to him talking about making trillion-dollar investments in the United States. And here it is, Tim Hodgson celebrating a startup is moving to Canada for corporate welfare. You can read it that way if you want to be a cynic in there. Startup moving to Canada for better corporate welfare and left-wing lunatic regulatory environment. Right?
But at the end of the day, you can say, at the end of the day, it just comes down to money, doesn't it? And people obviously, if there's somebody offering to just give you money, you just, without any real conditions, you're going to go there, aren't you? It doesn't matter who you are. But the sad thing is, the companies that make money, that actually sell things, produce things, they're not really coming to Canada in droves, are they?
But listen to this,
Instead,
though.
we get somebody with their hat putting their hat out right away and asking for more.
Listen to this. Build Canada strong. We're going to invest in Canadian companies. And here's the first announcement here. It's an American company coming to Canada for corporate welfare. You can't even make this stuff up.
To capture carbon as well, and in the process make absolutely no difference whatsoever to the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. Just nothing. Just won't move the dial. But in the process, some people are going to get extravagantly wealthy, just gloriously rich from this futile enterprise.
Again,
rather interesting.
Let's test the slogan to this for the benefit of the few, the expense of the many. Does that fit? For the benefit of the few, the expense of the many. How does that fit? Does that fit there?
Sounds pretty decent to me, yeah.
I did an interview with Joseph Barbudu on the economic long wave, and he says Canada is about to enter an economic winter. The video is done really well on YouTube. I advise you to go watch it. So he says that we're heading into a winter here, and it's a lot of it having to do with our real estate, our decoupling from the U.S. economy, and a whole bunch of things, and then what may happen to our Canadian dollar and how to prepare for this economic winter as well. Because, if winter comes, winter's coming as well, but if winter comes for the economy, how do you prepare for that? And I think that's what a lot of people are starting to ask. I think you and I, before we went on air, is what do you do if the economic winter comes? One, you could move to sunnier climates. That's one way, and a lot of people are doing it. We're seeing investment capital flee from Canada, moving to sunnier destinations, because that's where capital will go. It'll go to where there's less regulation, less taxation, more certainty. Those are the things.
The Caribbean,
yeah. Mark Carney, also the Brookfield's head office there is, or one of its offices is right there in the Bahamas bike shop. I think it's a crowded space. There's well over 800 other businesses that are crowded into that bike shop. Pretty good gig there for that bike shop. But I advise you to go watch this. And we're gonna do another interview, a longer one. I had to jump on that one because I had another interview coming in there. But we used the Japan example, and we talked about Venezuela and stuff like that too, right? So, switching gears a little bit, we're going to talk about another thing that Canada needs, that certainty, and that certainty of property rights. And I interviewed Jeff Moyse. He worked for the government for 31 years, the BC NDP. Well, he worked for several governments. He worked there for 31 years. And he said that the BC NDP chose not to defend fee simple property, and they refused to use it for ideological reasons. And this is where we're at, where the government of British Columbia court awarded the property rights to the Cowichan tribe. It's about 800 acres that was awarded to the Cowichan Nation. 800 acres there in Richmond, and includes private properties, some City of Richmond properties, and some private properties as well. And there's a cloud hanging over these properties right now. Pierre Poilievre is finally involved in it. I mean, they're finally taking it up. And Jeff Moyse is going to be back in next week. If you have any questions you want me to pass on to Jeff. Again, Aboriginal lawyer, 31 years with the government, and then now practicing outside of government. But he's got a lot of knowledge, and that I'd advise you to go watch that video too, because he gave a really good education as to what's going on, what it all means. So he really breaks it down very, very well.
And these are the consequences of cowardice. Sometimes cowards think, or people that do something cowardly, they think that it doesn't matter so much, that they can get away with it. In the case of this, Aboriginal land rights, or whatever you want to call it, there's been cowardice in this country for decades. Just abject spinelessness, just totally pathetic cowardice, and a fear of saying anything about this, really. Just, the most shameful behavior. And top of the list there has to be the likes of David Eby and the BC NDP, which has allowed this to happen. But it is a big deal, I think, to see Pierre Poilievre do this, because he is often a coward, even though he presents himself as the bravest man in the saloon. He's often very, very spineless, actually, and has been the last couple of days when he's been asked about the ostrich farm. And he's just so scared, such a frightened little schoolgirl, that he won't say whether he thinks the ostriches should live or not. He's just like avoids the question. But here he is. He's done something to his credit now. He's done something brave and bold and quite daring, actually, as a Canadian politician. And he's come out and stated the obvious. But, the fact that he's kind of alone, at least at a federal level, in doing that, tells you everything that you need to know about the political environment in this country. It's just an example of where cowardice turns toxic, basically, and can ultimately undo the whole country if you allow it.
Yeah, Jeff Moyse, his thing is that the BC NDP chose, and they were told when he was with the government, not to argue extinguishment. And extinguishment on lands that have been sold by the Crown, because all land is sold by the Crown, to individuals. So once that's sold, there should be no more challenge to title, because it calls into question the actual premise of Canada. If Canada can't sell land to people, then who owns the land? And it's collecting taxes from you and everything. So if the courts can decide that Canada didn't have the right to sell that land to somebody else, he said Eby's government chose not to argue extinguishment. They made that ideological choice, and he said this has to go to the Supreme Court, because this is so foundational to the premise of Canada. And this is
talking
really
about
important.
people leaving Canada earlier on due to the economic window. I mean, if people had the option, how many people would stay in a country where they don't know if the house that they own is even theirs? I mean, for God's sake, that's what's going on in these countries that we have like massive amounts of pity for, like Venezuela, where all that's been undermined. And what's happened to Venezuela? Millions of people, literally millions. I think it's like, I'm not sure what the latest number is. I think it's something like 10 million people have left Venezuela since the communists took over.
A lot of people wiped out too, like financially wiped out, absolutely wiped out.
But you will, the consequences. It's hard to exaggerate. It would indeed be the end of Canada in that scenario.
I would go watch that interview, because this court argues that two people could stay on title because they didn't lose their title, the private landowners. At least not now. There's a bit of a stay on it, but I mean, it's impossible to sell. Like if you were to try and sell that land, say if you actually own that land, who would buy it?
Yeah.
Have to
It's
be a
something,
full-
isn't it like joint at the minute? Joint title corners or something? It's like,
There's a pause on it. I'd advise you to go watch the interview. It's a very good interview, and Jeff is back in. He said he's got some updates for us, and he's back in next week. So I don't have my calendar in front of me. What day Jeff's in? Let me see if I can find it real quick here. We got Macklin in on Monday. He switched, and then we got John Carpe in on Tuesday. Constitutional Lawyer. Then we have Jeff on at 10:30 on Wednesday. So there you go. Mark your calendar. 10:30 on Wednesday. And then yeah, it'll be good to watch. And then this is a thing here. Like this is from Jagrup Brar saying big news for BC Mine. The Asia Pacific report shows investments in Canada critical minerals from the Indo-Pacific has surged 5x since 2020, and BC is at the forefront. Critical minerals investment between Canada and Indo-Pacific. The Indo-Pacific is Australia. But look at this map here. Let's put this map up here. And there's just one project here. And the other thing that should call into question here, they saw Indo-Pacific. This is Australia. Where's Canadian miners these days? Why aren't they here? Let's look at it. It's Australia, 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 right?
good time to be an Aussie.
You know what I mean? And it's there's the Newcrest mine, $8.8 million copper gold mine there, and then it's potash in Saskatchewan. Again, potash is huge. Uranium in Saskatchewan. I mean, Saskatchewan is this hotbed of just mines and uranium, and they got some oil and gas as well. And then obviously, Ontario has lots of mines, including the whole Timmins camp and all that kind of stuff. And Quebec, really big in mining as well. Quebec gets lots of mines. And, there's even some stuff out there in Voisey Bay. But Canada, where's all the Canadian miners is the better question, right? Where's Canadians investing? And now we're going to lose Teck as a Canadian company as well. It's going to get swallowed up by an American company there.
Yeah. I'm interested in Alberta's not on here. Quite surprised. I guess, is that because Alberta, they have their own companies, maybe?
This is just critical minerals.
They do have quite a bit of mining in Alberta, though, as well, don't they? But I wonder if they're just domestic, whereas this is just about the Aussies, isn't it?
Yeah, but what mines are in Alberta? Coal.
Coal. Yeah, coal. I think haven't they got gold as well?
You'd have to tell me where. I don't remember, but
I have to ask Mr.
ask our
ChatGPT. Yeah, but I guess it's because they're domestic, because obviously Alberta is like HQ for that kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, Alberta's got lots of forestry, and it's Anglo-American that's buying tech too. And then
so they're exploring lithium, nickel, and cobalt. I mean, that would be quite glorious, wouldn't it, for Alberta? Because that they would get that right away. They wouldn't mess around.
Yeah, the number one virtue signaler in Canada, Anita Nan, she's got something to share with us. Let's listen in on Anita.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question. Last week at the United Nations, I reiterated Canada's commitment to multilateralism. At a time when countries are retreating towards protectionism, Canada will not retreat. We will continue to be a leader on the world stage. We will strengthen our defence and security. We will strengthen our economic resilience, and we will enhance our commitment to core values. Mr. Speaker, with these three pillars of Canada's foreign policy, we will build Canada strong. Hear, hear.
I have no idea
with pride.
How anything she said there builds Canada strong. We're leading in multilateralism. What does that even mean? We should have played the clip after when she was clapping like a seal there at the UN when Mark Carney recognized Palestine.
Yeah, she gets a bit too excited, doesn't she? Like, she started to veer close to the cliff edge there, didn't she? Like, enhance. It's like,
I don't even understand what she said though. Like, what does that mean? We're leading in multilateralism. What does that mean?
It just means America sucks, basically. If you want me to translate it for you in the simplest possible way, it just because the only country on the planet that can do unilateralism really is America. China can do a little bit of it, but really it's just America. So multilateralism is all of the small fish ganging up on the big fish, basically.
Good one.
She likes that.
All the big fish does is say, like, if you're going to side over there, then you're done over here. And that's it for the little fish, right?
Yeah.
We've
and
seen
you're not
that
going to get
over-
our dome.
Yeah. We had Dan Elbis in yesterday, the MLA here for Okanagan West. He was in here yesterday. We were talking about the ferry thing. We're going to play a small clip from him. This is at the commission, though. We're going to play this clip.
One of the things I do know is frustrating to your members is that C-SPAN actually funded economic studies and presented them to BC Ferries in 2023. I believe it's called the Shiroka Report. It was done by a consulting group. BC Ferries has failed in its to produce those documents that this particular committee has, which I believe gave an argument for doing it here in Canada, an alternative vision. Do you believe that BC Ferries should come clean and submit that evidence so we can have a full conversation about the economic benefits of seeing these ships done in Canada?
So, of course, as an organization of many unions that were lobbying to have this work come to British Columbia, we were aware of the Shiroka study. A lot of the economic benefit analysis in terms of job creation, in terms of how taxes would flow back into the community, all of that came from that report, and we've read it. I was surprised that it wasn't disclosed.
Oh, so you believe, though, that the BC Ferries has an obligation to this committee and to the public to submit those documents?
I believe it's in the public's interest for that report to be made public.
Thank you very much.
So we had Dan in yesterday talking about that Shiroka report, and it was, you know how they found out about that report? It was independent reporter Rob Shaw, actually, that released that report or got that leaked to him. You know, they didn't cough it up on their own. And Christy Freeland, we asked if Christy Freeland would go back and answer the questions because, you know, there's allegations that she misled Parliament there when she was questioned. And if she will stand up to those questions, she's been quietly shuffled off to an envoy job now out of her cabinet minister or position of transport minister. And then she's been given the position as the reconstruction of Ukraine, which is still at war, and a $4.5 billion bag of cash to distribute with no oversight because they said they can't disclose that. I mean, just, you know, if anybody's asking. $4.5 billion.
They should call her the reconstruction czar. That would be appropriate, wouldn't it, for that neck of the woods? I just have to do a little shout out here to someone who's made me laugh in the YouTube comments by using the phrase "building my elbow strong." That's a perfect mashup of the two catchphrases, isn't it? Build elbow strong, everyone.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the mills yesterday. Shelley, regular viewer of the show, we talked about the mills, the destruction of the mills, but Evie's trying to blame it all on Trump. And clearly the forestry problem in British Columbia has been going on for quite a while. We've done so many interviews with former leader Kevin Falcon, opposition leader, and John Rustad, and even the NDP forest minister and jobs minister and all that, and David Eby himself on forestry. That's been in severe decline over the past few years. And now all of a sudden they've got a straw man to blame, Donald Trump. So you just heap it all on him without taking any responsibility. And this is Eleanor Sturtko just piling onto this as well. She's been great. She's been kicked out of the BC Conservative caucus, though, because she was a threat to John Rustad.
Too great.
Too good, yeah. She says these CCP, fentanyl, and shipbuilding industry are designed to strengthen military capabilities are a national security threat. We know that David Eby sent the CCP. Could have gone to hardworking British Columbia. It just makes no sense. If you look at this thing, and if you actually, again, if you go on CBC's website, did you see any stories on Rob Shaw's leaked report? Did you see anything on there? I didn't see it. Did you see anything on the budget? No. Taylor Swift was on there,
they didn't
though.
even have to. Yeah, Taylor Swift. They didn't even have to, because obviously a lot of reporters are, you'll not be surprised to learn this at all, gigantic narcissists. And they cannot stand the idea that they would have to credit somebody else to report on a story. But in this case, as you just showed, Dan Albas talked about it in the committee there. So you could just, there's a way around that. There's no excuse not to talk about this. If it's your pathetic little ego that's preventing you from doing it, there's no there's no excuse this time. But I would say, like, I asked Dan Albas when we interviewed him. I don't know if we're going to talk about that interview, but when we interviewed him yesterday, I asked him what would happen, because he and his party now want to kill this deal completely. They just want to kill the loan, kill the deal, and choose a Canadian manufacturer instead. But I asked him what would happen. And I think that might be the answer. When people keep saying, what on earth's going on here? Like, why don't they just kill it? I think it's the consequences, because this is connected to the Chinese Communist Party. It's a state-owned shipyard. It's a big contract. It's a big deal. It's a lot of money and jobs and foreign currency for China. And the Chinese, obviously, as we've learned, or the Chinese communists, they don't like to be messed around. They don't like to be what they would see as being, treated badly or humiliated. They really don't like that. So I imagine that that's probably the primary concern, that people like David, not so much David Eby's kind of small time in this, but Mark Carney, the man who really could kill this, he's probably thinking, do I really want to get the Chinese to, get very angry over this? Like, it's not worth it. We'll just ride it out.
And then, again, the Liberals stand at the podium talking about, we brought this up with Dan Albas, they talk at the podium, build Canada strong, Canadian jobs, use of Canadian steel, use of Canadian aluminum, build Canada strong. And here it is again, Stephen Fuhr, a local MLA as well here, that unseated Tracy Gray here in Kelowna, talking about building submarines. Let's listen to what Stephen Fuhr has to say about subs.
This at speed, right? So we can't for subs are a great example. We don't build submarines in Canada. We could, it would just take way too long. So we've looked elsewhere. So I'm going to parlay that into how much Canada can be involved economically with in-service support and some other deals on a G2G level. With regard to the U.S., there's some systems that we will probably just have to buy from the U.S. Again, we're not abandoning that relationship. It's going to change, and we're going to amortize or diversify ourselves in ways that meet the moment. And that's not having all our eggs in one basket, whether it be the U.S. or anybody else.
There's your friend in the background there, Jenna Suds.
Yeah, she's got herself a parliamentary secretary job. She used to be a minister, but I guess she's happy just to be there.
But again, here's our chance to use Canadian steel, use Canadian aluminum. You build Canada strong, use jobs, and what did he say? We can't. When? Like,
well, he said we can, but it would take too long. And I think that's the most interesting thing there, is he's admitting what we all kind of know, which is like, it's a question of will. And that also applies to the ferries. That applies to everything. We could do it, but we have other priorities, basically.
So we've had these old diesel subs for what? Forever and a day. We bought 2 of them from a UK garage sale, right? That they lit on fire. And that's got to be like 40 years ago. So all of a sudden, we need to get these subs built in such a time that, I could even buy in if you said we're gonna order one now. We're going to order one now from another country because we need it immediately, but we're going to start building 3 of our own. That I could even buy. Mm-hmm. But this, we can't build it. But we need to, what are we supposed to do with Canadian steel aluminum if we can't sell it to the Americans?
Yeah, I don't know. God knows. Make cans.
Make cans.
We can have as many cans as we need.
And the subs we're going to make, they're going to be diesel subs again. Like, the American warships are all nuclear powered. Like, they can stay at sea forever. Like the USS Gerald Ford, the aircraft carrier. Like, go ChatGPT, go look. You can see what that thing is. It's basically a city in the ocean that can stay at sail for, I don't know, months and months and months. And I don't think you have to recharge it or whatever, or refuel it for like years and years. It's a nuclear powered aircraft carrier. But anyway,
that's all the rage, isn't it? And that is for independence. It's so that they can operate completely independently.
But you know what?
Which you kind of need for things like submarines and aircraft carriers.
Yeah. So it's Stephen Fuhr. Somebody corrected me. He's an MP. Well, he was. Yeah, he's an MP. There you go.
What did you say?
I know someone said I called him an MLA.
I know you called Dan Albers an MLA, didn't you, yesterday? A little demotion for Dan Albers.
There you go. Maybe we're hoping to get some. Anyway. And part of Mark Carney's plan is to actually incorporate the Coast Guard into the military. Remember when they were starting to count the ships into the military there, and then they counted all the lifeboats and these kind of things were counted into our military arsenal. But now the union representing the Coast Guard says we never signed up for combat, so we don't want to become militarized. That's from the Union of Canadian Transport Employees. They told MPs that they had no warning to Cabinet's decision to transfer control of the Coast Guard from the Fisheries Department to the Department of National Defense. We also know that the Coast Guard can't even hand out fishing fines. They have to actually get someone from Fisheries to hand out. Right? So they don't have a lot of power.
It's quite reasonable, I would say, from this union. It's quite a reasonable objection.
Here's your gun. They're just like, what? What's going on here? And that's your boat,
Here's
though,
your
right?
harpoon.
There's your boat, and there's the USS Gerald Ford out there. You go and deal with it. Because even if we did get a nuclear ship, battleship, or aircraft carrier in Canada, it wouldn't be able to port in Vancouver or in BC coastline. Not allowed to have any nuclear-powered ships on the coast of Vancouver. So I don't know what he's supposed to do. So when the war starts, we'd say, well, you know what? We don't allow Chinese nuclear warships near our coastline. So just so you know, right? And Russians, like, you can't come here.
It's just like that. Canada's full of contradictions, isn't it? Just the very idea of Canada, but also the sort of the legal bread and butter, what makes Canada what it is. It's just full of these weak points, so many Achilles heels, and then because it's all based on contradictions, and that's one where it's like everybody knows this, and yet it just kind of is allowed to go along. But at some point, you have to answer questions like that.
Yeah, and they said they want to transfer its $2.4 billion annual budget into NATO so they can count it as military spending. That's the premise of it. But they said the Coast Guard is not in prime shape. The first and perhaps greatest concern is we must rise is the chronic underfunding. For decades, the Coast Guard has stretched far too thin, too few vessels, too little modern equipment, and too few trained hands to crew them. And recruitment and retention are serious problems. Again, Canada has some of the biggest coastline. I think it might have the largest coastline, maybe next to Russia, like exposed coastlines. And we were talking about the Pacific Ocean, the Arctic Ocean, and the Atlantic Ocean. And then, Polyev sometimes says we have 4 coastlines, and you could call the Great Lakes a coastline as well, because half of the Great Lakes are into the American waterways. And that's that would be a Coast Guard would be working in there as well. So 4 coastlines to protect, or 4 bodies of water. And, we have an underfunded, again, we said this about the Canadian military, underfunded, undertrained, under-equipped.
And in this case, it's actually probably fair to say that this is legit and this is fine. But, as an avid listener to CBC News on the radio, every single day is somebody representing some industry, some department, some whatever it is, basically begging for money. And they say the exact same thing. It's like, oh, we're not going to be able to deliver our services because we're so chronically underfunded. It's just like everybody says that. It's a barrage of these beggars that come to Ottawa all the time and say, please, 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 please. And it's kind of like people like the Coast Guard, who have been, I think, completely genuine here, and it's an accurate description. They just kind of one voice among thousands.
What I would advise the Coast Guard to do is plant a couple of trees on the boat and call it a carbon capture vessel, and then apply for some grants.
Or maybe put a wind turbine on the back of the boat and power it with wind.
Yeah, so it's facing all kinds of challenges, recruiting, retaining qualified people. And again, if you look at our Canadian military, we talked about it, they're almost at minimum wage, their starting salary, right? They're, pretty close to minimum wage, the starting salary for a Canadian military. For somebody that we're asking to go kill strangers, right? Put your life on the line and then you go kill these strangers.
While wearing gear that's even worse than what you get at Canadian Tire in the Arctic.
And meanwhile, if you're a bureaucrat in Ottawa, you're in 6 figures and you don't have to come to work more than 3 days a week if you do show up for those 3 days a week. And you can complain about your job not getting enough money and stuff watch Netflix.
Yeah. And then if ever you get asked questions about, what a failure you've been, you can just say things like, "Oh, that was never our responsibility."
And then if you ever get to be part of the management team, then you can look in the salary range in the $500,000 range, right?
That's the standard for the big boys these days.
But not for the guys out there. The government is trying to blame the trade war for these horrendous numbers, but it doesn't pass the sniff test. And this is in the National Post, an opinion piece. Carney's borrowing binge will break the bank. And Jason Jacques getting a lot of play from, not a lot of CBC though, they're getting a lot of play from outlets like ourselves, National Post, and like some of the smaller outlets are giving him a lot of voice. And it's on CPAC and that, but like, again, just for giggles, I'm sure this is up there. The CBC, I'm sure this, that Jason Jacques has made the, can you go there just real quick and see if Jason Jacques has made the headline yet there? He's going to try. Just because, it's such an important story, but obviously, is it up there yet?
I'm not seeing it myself.
I just hit the reload button there. No.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the National Post. National Post, generally speaking, is aligned with the Conservative Party. CBC is aligned with the Liberal Party. So National Post reports on it, CBC doesn't. We are aligned with nobody, so we can chat a lot. We can chat about anything.
And this is Vincent Neil Ho asking some questions. If Canadians can't afford rent on groceries, but here's what Liberals think you can do with our tax dollars: $75,000 for tax complexity for German children's books, $20,000 for situated apathy. This is just a couple of examples. I mean, there's tons. We've covered off tons of them. Go ahead and play this small clip here.
I'm seeing here there's a research project for the text complexity of German children's books for $75,000. I just want to see, how does that give value for taxpayers in Canada when we're facing a inflation crisis, a cost of living crisis, a border crisis, money that could be redirected to. How do we explain to Canadian taxpayers that is money well spent?
Well, as you said, it's public money, it's taxpayer money, and within Canada, there are diversity of viewpoints, a variety of interests, and as a federal agency, we look to fund those
German
interests.
children's books.
Madam
I
Chair?
mean, shouldn't the German government study this? Why are we studying this? How does that help Canadians?
It would be a great idea to bring the researcher here and ask the researcher those questions.
The researchers are in the University of Calgary.
Yeah.
Both of them. So they're Canadians. So why are we studying? Or they're based in Canada rather. Why are we studying this? Why does that provide?
Just why is the question. Like, we can go on and on. We covered many of these stories here from Hollywood and Blacklocks. $497,000 to administer the dental program, not for providing benefits, to administer the program. 497 million. I didn't say 497 million, right? Million, $500 million to administer the program, and then they set aside $50 million for the vaccine adverse effects. $36 million went to the administration of the program, to software and that. 64
Gun
million.
buybacks, another one, 750 million. Just a cool.
Oh right, yeah.
Three-quarters
and no
of a
guns.
billy.
No guns, right?
Yeah,
And,
no guns. That's the important part. I honestly think, though, I wish that he'd gone in more on the other one than the German one. I mean, that is absurd, isn't it? The German one. That's why he did it. But the other one is much funnier. Situated apathy: the politics of post-colonial climate apathy. I mean, that is just guaranteed. Like, maybe there's some sense to the German one. Like, maybe it's something to do with speech, like linguistics or something. It might possibly theoretically have a use. But this one, the politics of post-colonial climate apathy, I can tell you right now for free that there's nothing of any value contained within that.
if you go back a few episodes, how about the almost $1 million to the anti-hate network to spread hate?
Don't say that, mate. They'll defame you. Yeah, they'll sue you.
Well, I guess, yeah. So they're for the anti-hate network that spreads love, I guess, right? They just target groups.
Yeah, they really hate hate. They despise hatred, and they're just out there constantly
looking
whenever they see it.
And you knew this was coming, because as they try to distance themselves from the past, they have to find a target. And here's Catherine McKenna targeting our old friend, the Fool of the Day. He has actually made it into the Hall of Fame for Fool of the Day.
Oh yeah, big time.
And she's saying the feminist, on quotation marks, Justin Trudeau, the prime minister, was aloof and just didn't seem interested in the ministers, the caucus members beside his own childhood friends of Dominic LeBlanc and Mark Miller. He was preachy and talked down to people. You know, when we said that, we were attacked and said that, you know, how dare you attack the Prime Minister of Canada? How dare you attack him?
Mark Miller, though, he's very much, they're so clearly cut from the same cloth, aren't they? Trudeau and Miller. Except Mark Miller has zero charisma and is also quite irritable and unpleasant, whereas Justin Trudeau is capable of being quite charming at times, dare I say. But Dominic LeBlanc, he was his babysitter, wasn't he? Dominic LeBlanc babysat Justin Trudeau at one point, I believe. But I find that a strange trio. I have to say, Dominic LeBlanc, I'm going to say it, I think he's quite a likable dude. He seems like a normal, likable man. Like I could imagine having a laugh with him. He's the odd one out there, I think, and I just find that strange. I just thought I would highlight that. What are you doing, LeBlanc? What are you doing with those guys?
And then also she goes on to say that he was preachy, talked down to people, and he never stopped talking about it, never stopped the virtue signaling. It made it sound like we were there to fill a quota. Well, Catherine... Christine...
Sorry to break it to you, Catherine. You're right. That's the whole point.
Chrystia Freeland said it best, that the Trudeau Liberals spent 10 years, or wasted 10 years, virtue signaling and on identity politics. And it looks like it's the same show, though. It's the same show. The guy that was in the background, the front.
We say something like 50% of all our MPs will be women. Yeah. Is that a quarter or not? I mean, what do you think is going to happen when you do that?
What? Yeah, and this other thing, when Tim Hodgson, one of the serious guys, comes out and tells us, you know, he's celebrating the victory of a carbon capture startup moving to Canada to put its hand in the corporate welfare jar of the Canadian taxpayer, an American company coming to Canada for carbon capture and putting its hand in the Canadian taxpayer cookie jar. That's empty, by the way.
To be fair, we laugh. We laugh at the fact that they've generously agreed to come and take our money, take our government subsidies. But what's really funny is, so did Honda, and so did a few other companies that were given a massive subsidies, and they didn't even stay around. Like, it wasn't even good enough. Free money wasn't even good enough for them. So maybe this will happen with this American company. It's just like, nah, it's just not acceptable.
Well, we had a local company here that took $10 million in subsidies, and the first sign of Trump bailed, took the $10 million, and that was highlighted by, we've interviewed him a few times, Chase Barber, that he's running, what's that, I think company he's called? He's not Tesla or something, like stealing Tesla's ideas. Edison Motors, stealing Tesla's ideas. Or he's converting logging trucks to electric with the regen coming down the hill with heavy loads. And he can't get a grant, but an American company can get a grant. And the first sign of trouble, they bailed and took the cash money with them. And it's just ludicrous, the amount of corporate welfare. And then you have guys like Doug Ford pouring out the bottles of Crown Royal. And then GM announcing they were going to leave the other day. I don't know, has he started a Silverado on fire yet? Has that happened yet?
You can pour the Crown Royal onto the cars and then set fire to them. That's, I mean, it's obvious, surely, Doug.
And then this is a small one here. Election official reckons dozens of ballots went out with the wrong postal code in a riding. The Liberals won by one vote. This thing is still in the courts, though, too, right? When are we going to hear the results of this thing?
Yeah, it could take a long time, and there could be appeals and all sorts of things.
The next election, after the election, they're going to say, "Oh, right, that should have been a block seat all along. Sorry about that."
Yeah, but I mean, this to me, this is like in microcosm. This is obviously just one story among thousands, tens of thousands, or whatever that could demonstrate this. But this seems to encapsulate the standard of leadership that we have in Canada and also in other countries. It's true in European countries and Britain and places like that. But all this is crying out. This situation was crying out for somebody just to take the lead, just to be a leader, be a boss, and say, this can't stand. This cannot stand. You know, Gandalf style. Just say, look, one vote, and there's dozens of these anomalies, and we know that at least one woman who's come forward for the suit voted for the other party, therefore nullifying the one vote majority. Like somebody, you'd think Mark Carney, the woman that won it for the Liberal Party, somebody you would think would come forward and say, all right, I'm going to do the right thing here because this is completely unreasonable. This undermines faith in our democracy. And because I love democracy so much and love Canada so much, what I'm going to do is stand down and we're going to do this again so we can do it properly. But that hasn't happened. There's just, we talked about spinelessness earlier. What is this but like the most craven cowardice? It's almost repulsive to look at this kind of immaturity.
This story was on the Defenders of Democracy website, right? CBC, was it not? Whoops, nope, maybe not. No. Turns out it wasn't on the Defenders of Democracy's website.
Because in fairness, it puts democracy in a bad light, doesn't it? So I guess they probably thought, nah. But like the thing is, people know about this. People are going to know about this. Doesn't matter if CBC reports on it or not. People are going to know about this, and they're going to say, "What the hell?" And in places like Quebec, which has its fair share of radicalization, let's say, of various kinds. It couldn't have happened in a worse place, really, could it? I mean, maybe it could have happened in Alberta, and the Liberals won by one vote. That would upset people. But I just feel like the principles at stake here are too big, and that it's too important to just let this stink up the democratic atmosphere. Somebody needs to just take the bull by the horns and say, yeah, this is ridiculous. Let's do it. Let's do another election.
I wasn't going to put this in here, but this is bubbling up in the Mud Hutter realm, though. So I just thought I'd put it in there, just take it with a grain of salt. But this is Glenn Beck. Well, you need to take it with a grain of salt to begin with here. But let's listen into Glenn Beck bubbling up there.
The State Department had a meeting, a second high-level meeting in Washington, I think on Monday, and our administration is eager to recognize Alberta as an independent state or country. Can you give me any insight on what is happening on this side of the border, and what does that mean with our relationship with the nut job parts of Canada?
Well, sure I can. I received a briefing from that delegation yesterday. I think the Trump administration is very concerned about what's happening in Canada. My understanding from the meetings that have occurred that the Trump administration officials have indicated that the U.S. would recognize a vote by the people of Alberta to become independent. So that's very important.
That's good enough. You just let that breathe and percolate. But, the Glenn Beck, he used to have a show, I think, was it on CNN or Fox? I can't remember. He was on one of those.
He was all over the place. He was quite a big name once, wasn't he? Back when his hair was golden rather than this extremely white color it seems to have become now.
I never see him anymore. This is the first clip I've seen. This is being put out by the Rise of Alberta. They're obviously trying to get some traction there. And
well, it's like, this is one of those things where you could guess this. You could guess that this is true, that the Americans would welcome Alberta, because obviously they would. Then they would get like a lot of what makes Canada rich in the first place. Plus, they would get quite a good sort of demographic situation, so they wouldn't have to pay for all the Quebec pensions and all the Ontario pensions, and then the Maritimes, which they would hate, by the way. They talk about 51st state. They would hate to take on those liabilities because the pension situation is pretty dire. And so they get all that money, decent demographics, and also Alberta, of all the provinces of Canada, is probably the most closely aligned to the US. So
to the US,
obviously the Americans, there'll be somebody in the State Department who's written papers about this, definitely, and kept it internal about how they would do it.
I would say if you look at this from a corporate point of view, like from corporations, like it's like corporate rating, right? You buy a corporation that's in trouble, and then you sell off the parts you don't want, and then you kind of take the plum and do that. And you're right. If you looked at if you were a corporate raider and you looked at Canada, you would want to take the western provinces. You would want BC too because of the coastline. You would want Alberta, BC, and Saskatchewan if you're taking the plums. Yeah. Ontario would be kind of like in the middle of that, but I mean, those would be the plums. And then the rest would be, especially Alberta and Saskatchewan would align, if you're the Republican, it would align with the Republican Party, which would strengthen their future. If they be given state status, they would align with that party, giving them more seats into the Republican Party as well, right? So,
and then the Democrats would be like, "We got to get you in here, Ontario." Then it'd be the battle to get them in.
They would want British Columbia, and I think there was already that thing where they're trying to trade, right? Because I think there's a movement in the States where California, Washington, and Oregon wanted to separate with BC. They wanted to become this Western alliance of,
Yeah. What do they call it again? Cascadia.
Something like that. Yeah. Anyway, we're into our BC section. We got a small section here for British Columbia.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Yeah, so New Zealand records biggest meth bust, and it came from Vancouver. That's the headline in this section here. But we'll kick it off first with Eleanor Sturko, though. A new report warns that Vancouver lacks hotel capacity for FIFA. Well, we know that. That's what happened with Taylor Swift. People were paying, $3,500 a night for a Best Western during Taylor Swift concert. So Airbnb wants an exemption during FIFA World Cup in Vancouver, but EB says no. Of course, EB said no. Why would he not say no, right? We're seeing, they're just like the Trudeau Liberals. They just don't know how to say they were wrong. They don't know how to say they were wrong.
Well, when he was doing his penitence routine in the build-up to the election, including in that interview with you,
he was wrong
where
then.
he was saying he was changing his tune on all sorts of things, but not that. He refused to. He drew the line at the Airbnb thing, didn't he? It's clearly something really important to him.
Well, this is what they're getting for it, though. Here's some condos here in Calgary. This is 2,500 condos sitting empty and more coming online, and they can't sell them. Here's this little clip here. Oh, I guess we don't have the clip, but we got it. It's coming. It's coming like the rain. It's coming like the economic.
You have a nice entrance here.
This one-bedroom condo near Vancouver's UBC campus has been on the market for a few weeks. It's competing against thousands of new, never-been-lived-in units, with developers offering all the bells and whistles to try to sell them.
They're throwing in parking stalls, they're throwing in storage lockers, they're giving cash back on completion.
According to the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, there are about 2,500 completed, unabsorbed units sitting empty in Metro Vancouver, double the amount from a year ago. But that could be just the tip of the iceberg, because many don't get listed, creating what's known as a shadow inventory.
And it's hard to tell exactly in, let's say...
Yeah, who doesn't want to pay, over $1,000 a square foot for a shoebox?
I was just wondering, if you're that desperate to sell it, accept the lowballs that I'm certain you will have been sent, there must be people out there just doing this every day, just sending out hilarious lowballs, and I'm sure they'll succeed at some point.
Well, the problem is that some of these developers are likely underwater right now, and because the carry costs on these things, the interest costs and the carry costs are starting to crush them. We're seeing that here in the Okanagan too, real estate teams that have laid off most their team. We're seeing that, condos that used to sell out in a day in the Okanagan here are 3 years later still have inventory that they can't sell. And that was the Airbnb. As soon as that Airbnb thing passed here in British Columbia, and especially in Kelowna and tourism area, that was it. People trying to get out of deals, and they can't sell them, and there's lots of units for sale. And these aren't units. They were intended. And here's the bad thing for the city of Kelowna. They were sold as, zoned as, and people invested in them because that's how the city of Kelowna zoned them, and it was approved. They were sold as Airbnb short-term rental properties, and there's only a few of them designated in that, and they took those away from people, and it's driven. So again, with investment capital, where do you go? A lot of people, and I've interviewed quite a few people, and they say that it was basically property expropriation. They can't cash flow it at that, so that means they lose money. And a lot of people, if that's their only investment property, they can't afford to lose money. And you expect them to just keep doing it? There you go.
I think where's the money going to go? The answer would be almost certainly U.S. equities. I mean, the Mark Carney example, that's where the money's going to go in a lot of these cases.
Where did he put his money? Follow the leader. Hey, follow the leader. The leader leads you to the promised land, doesn't he not? Largest meth seizure in New Zealand history. Guess where it came from? And David Eby denies all this stuff too. Maple syrup bottles from Vancouver. That'd be the first clue if you're from New Zealand. You'd say
makes people feel patriotic.
I thought the maple syrup came from Quebec. All of a sudden, it's coming from Vancouver?
Maple meth.
Maple meth, yeah. There you go. Sam Cooper does a great job, actually. That was the
Yeah,
number
I'm
one.
kind of surprised that he's still a free man. I thought he would have been like hunted down by the authorities because it's constant embarrassment for various governments, isn't it?
And all the stories he covers, and same as Holly Doan, the Blacklocks, those are all on CBC's websites.
Definitely.
We got one more segment for you here. International news.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Trump warns of hell on earth, and he threatens Hamas with all hell if he doesn't agree by peace by Sunday. Trump loves to throw out deadlines. It'll face all hell if it refuses to accept an American peace plan by 6 p.m. Washington. So, I mean, a lot of countries have, including Mark Carney, have endorsed Trump's plan for peace. That's, I think, there's 7 or 8. We talked about it yesterday. 7 or 8 Middle Eastern countries there, including, and I can't remember the names of all the countries now, but most of them in that region have agreed to it, other than Hamas has not agreed to it. And I don't know what hell looks like.
Sorry, you go ahead.
I don't know what hell looks like when you're blowing up rubble. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to make like smaller rubble or big rubble into small rubble, or what's hell?
That's the thing, and we talk, don't we? We like our new catchphrase, which is for the few at the expense of the many. This is another example of it, because this deal, I don't know if you've read the 20 points. The White House put it on their website, and I think on Twitter as well. There are 20 points to this peace plan, and more than one of them is focused on basically erasing Hamas as an organization, just getting rid of it forever. So Hamas obviously look at that and they say, well, no, I'm not going to accept this deal because it means the end of my organization. So they're more concerned, which has always been the case with Hamas, they're more concerned about themselves than they are, the people that they claim to rule over.
And then they're apparently, or allegedly, they have absconded billions of dollars and made themselves very wealthy. Well,
been going on for ages. Yasser Arafat did that as well, in the Palestinian Authority, that in the West Bank. It's endemic with
I'm afraid to say
Palestine. It's not just Palestine, is it? This goes on everywhere, Africa, all over the place.
I think Nina Nan there has sent over 400 million. I'm sure that's made it into the hands of the people.
Well, I guess Hamas are the people, in a way. They are people. They're humans. So that's what she could say.
Here's this thing. The government is shut down in the United States of America right now, and the Democrats blaming the Republicans blaming the Democrats. And this all comes down to Republicans accusing the Democrats of wanting to give benefits to illegal aliens, and the Democrats denying it vehemently, saying that's not true. Elizabeth Warren yesterday, holy cow, she was just like, she did the finger thing too, the pointing thing. That's not true. Anyway, so let's listen to this clip. This is on Fox. I really like this young man here, this reporter.
I haven't heard anybody in my party saying that illegal immigrants should get access to the health insurance marketplace.
I'm so glad you said that. Actually, I have some tape of your Democratic Party members saying this on the debate stage. So they've all said it. Let's play the clip.
A lot of you have been talking tonight about these government health care plans that you proposed in one form or another. This is a show of hands question, and hold them up for a moment so people can see. Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants. Okay.
Senator, that's literally every member of your party, from moderate to more progressive, that have said that in the past.
She didn't like that. Did you see Sleepy Joe in the middle? He was one of the last guys to raise his hand. Sleepy Joe, just like, or what are we doing?
Okay, guys. Yeah.
Is there ice cream?
I think that era, 2016, 2015, 2016 to 2024, let's say, that era is just going to keep on coming back to bite the Democrats on their behinds, isn't it? Because back then that made sense, or they thought it made sense. That was kind of like going with the flow. And that's certainly not the case now, is it? And there's so many, on all the issues you like, you can just go through the list of them where they were on what is now considered to be, generally speaking, the wrong side. And these videos, like Fox News probably just has a little a room full of these videos where they just get ready to play them to embarrass the modern Democrats.
And I believe that's Lawrence Jones there, right? And he just like laid the trap. He laid the trap, and he says, "Oh, we do have a clip for you right here." And she has made that wincy face. Did you see that face she made right there?
Because it's very hard to argue against. I'm sure she has some kind of argument that she can put forward, saying something like, "All right, we're not doing that now, though," or whatever it is. But the fact is, that is such a devastating video for that point, isn't it? It's such a clear-cut issue where they all just put their hands up. It's kind of like it couldn't be worse for them.
I think we should put that meme in here. When Anita Nan was at the UN there, when she was clapping like a seal, we should put that in there whenever we see those applause things, because everybody in the audience applauded it too. I mean, it's clear what they wanted, but the voter didn't want that. I mean, that was one of the things he ran against, right? That was one of the things that the American people did not want. I mean, because the taxpayers being bled, and the taxpayers being bled here in Canada as well. Like, I mean, we showed the clip there where we're giving money to just nonsensical things where Canadians can't afford to buy meat, can't afford to put fuel in their tank, can't afford a lot of things, right? And remember what
we can't afford PhD theses on post-colonial apathy, post-colonial climate apathy.
But we remember what Justin Trudeau, we should have that clip at the ready all the time, where he said, "I know it's hard to pay your rent. I know it's hard to buy groceries, but there's much more important things than you surviving."
But I gotta leave now. I've got a flight to Tofino, and my caviar is getting hot.
Me and Mark Miller are going to go do something later today. The Eiffel Tower closed as nationwide strikes held across France. So, you know, France trying out that austerity badge as well. Macron not doing well with that either.
They say it's austerity, honestly. Have a look at the French. The French pensions. There was a study came out a couple of weeks ago which showed that French pensioners earn more money than working age French people. I mean, it's just, and then what Macron's been trying to do for so long, ever since he became president, he's been trying to increase the retirement age, tiny teensy bit, and it's just like the whole of France just explodes in fury when that happens. It's kind of ludicrous to call that austerity, but nonetheless, for having said that, I do quite respect the Frenchies for that, because they really stand up for their privileges. Or some of them do, anyway.
Yeah, for giggles, I went to CTV News to see what they had there, if they had the budget, if they were covering the budget or the oil pipeline and that. But no, they got, it's not even worth going there. They got Hegseth on there. There you go. You got Hegseth on there. Obviously, he needs to be on there. Loblaw's closing second of these ultra discount no-name stores. And,
just in Ontario, that, I think, isn't it?
Most Canadians are overweight. You know, and a lot of people say it overweight.
They finally got around to that one that we did yesterday.
Most Canadians, they would say, "Oh, I see Canadians are overweight. They must be getting enough food." Well, no, it's because they're eating cheaper food. The cheaper food is the food that's bad for you, like the high sugar foods are what that you don't want to eat. It's the whole foods and stuff. The meat, like beef, is just absolutely crazy, right?
Well, it's like frozen food, isn't it? It's like, you know, battered fish or whatever, or frozen pizza, things like that. That's what tends to contain the most fat and calories.
Yeah, so if you wanna see this kind of stuff, come here every day. We're here at 9 a.m. every weekday. We kind of cover off a gambit of things and kind of like show you what's going on in the real world and what Canadians are feeling. Or if you want to go to CBC, I'm just on that website there. Now they're talking. They got. You know, like, I don't understand how the Ontario man arrested in Texas, obviously. You know, UK police shot 2 Manchester synagogue attack victims. UK police, oh well. Ontario man arrested in Texas. Trump gives Hamas until Sunday. Taylor Swift, the life of a showgirl. Who doesn't want to know what Taylor Swift does on a regular basis? Who doesn't want to know that, right? You know, this billionaire that wants to tell you how to vote, how to act, how to everything. You know, like she's a good singer, But I mean, I don't think that we should be turning to her for political advice, or people should be wondering what she eats for breakfast.
It's just as we live in a very obsessive time, don't we? People get so obsessed with their idols nowadays in a way that I'm not sure was true even 50, 60 years ago. When the Beatles were getting big, maybe I'm wrong here, but I don't think people were so did people try and become Paul McCartney and just sort of obsessed to that extent? Maybe they did, I don't know.
One of the comments here, Joel flexing here, is saying that he'll bet, he'll put my fat people in America against your fat people, bring American money. So he's flexing there saying, American money, and we'll bet, why don't you take our Canadian peso? Come on. Stop being so mean. There was a time where our Canadian dollar recently was at $1.10. I remember I was working at the mine site at the time, actually. It was in, Stephen Harper was the prime minister. The Canadian dollar was $1.10. And I said to myself at that time, I should buy a lot of American dollars at that point. Oops.
Bury them in the yard.
There you go. Canadian dollar not looking healthy right now. It looks like it wants to go down if you go take a look at it. But anyway, we're gonna do a tech show, I think, later today. But I do have something else going on today, do I not? Let me just see if there's somebody else coming in today.
Not Big Mac. You saying Big Mac's changed it again?
No, Big Mac's on Monday. I have a guy coming in. He's got a fleet of natural gas trucks that they've been touting, that all natural gas, LNG trucks, like semis that are running, a fleet that's running. So find out about it.
That's cool.
Yeah, there you go. That's our show. And we're back Monday, every morning at 9 a.m. If you like what we do, you get some value out of it, please share it, because they took away our audience with Bill C-18. That crushes local independent media. Imagine that. And they want you to go and he said the only outlet worth giving money to really is CBC. And you go look at that and they'll tell you what you need to read. You need to read about Taylor Swift, Trump, obviously, Trump the devil, Daniel Smith the devil.
Don't worry about the economy.
Yeah.
Just,
or the budget.
Trump or something.
Trump. Yeah. And then, Kai, what's her name? Kai Trump. The little girl, the little golfer there, she took some pictures in front of the White House there selling her golf gear. And, that seems to be a big issue. But hey, Taylor Swift, what'd she have for breakfast? But Kai Trump, little devil, right? Because she's trying to flog some golf gear, right? Poor Kai.
Get angry.
Yeah. She's a good little golfer, actually.
Yeah, I've heard that she's good. But I suppose she just plays golf all day, so she should be good.
She should put up her kingdom against the Taylor Swift's kingdom for a golf game and see who wins. Winner take all. Anyway, that's it. That's our show for today. We'll be back next Monday at 9 a.m. Cheerio till then. Have a great weekend. Looks like great weather.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.